Let's
everybody.
rock and
My name
roll.
is Angie Viscianen, and I am the founder of Leg Up Legal. We provide a mentoring program to connect pre-law students to lawyers for mentoring so they can learn more about the legal profession before they start law school. And we started doing these Zoom meetups at the beginning of COVID-19 to allow people to really connect with other law students and legal professionals and really learn a little bit more about our world. So I'm excited today to introduce to you Keith Leshine, and he runs his own law firm, and he's going to share with you his career path today and how he went from being a construction worker all the way to being a very successful lawyer. So Keith, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, thank you, Angie. Hi, everybody. Thanks for calling and in on the Zoom call today. My name is Attorney Keith Leshine, and I want to thank Angie and Kathy for getting me on the show. I've only been doing social media for 4 months. I started for my business because of COVID and the traffic was down a lot, and being a personal injury attorney, less cars, less accidents, less business. And I've gotten some really good connections from that, including on LinkedIn and Facebook, people I haven't seen or spoken to in 39 years since high school graduation. And of course, this LinkedIn show. So I want to thank Angie for that. So I'm going to get right down to the nuts and bolts here and just tell you about my story, how I went from the 99% of wage earners and wealth to the 1% of wage earners and wealth, from becoming an attorney, running my own personal injury law firm for 20 years, and how I got there, and a couple tips on what I think is important once you achieve financial success and to get to financial success. And I just want to preface by saying success to me is very subjective. Success does not mean you have to make $1 million every year and be worth X amount and drive a Ferrari or live in a big house or whatever like that. Success is very subjective. If success to you is being a monk and being in a monastery and you're happy and all your needs of life are taken care of and you're happy, then that's success. So I don't ever look down on anybody about what they do or how much money they make or anything like that. I'm one of those attorneys, when people meet me out in public and I'm not dressed up like this and they find out that I'm an attorney, their response is usually, I've never met an attorney like you. You're very down to earth and a very cool guy. And that's just how I am. I'm the same guy I was 20, 25, 30 years ago, except I make a much better living, live in a nicer house, and am financially set. So basically, years ago, I was doing retail management. I didn't go to college. I was in my early 20s. I was always very smart in school, but I just didn't want to go to college when I was younger. I went to a private school. It was one of the best schools in all of New Jersey. All I cared about was sports, riding my moped, and girls. So I never really wanted to go to college. School wasn't for me at the time. So after high school, I was doing retail management. For those of you who are old enough to remember the show Married with Children, I was Al Bundy. I was managing shoe stores at a corporate level for big corporations, but they don't pay very well. The hours are very long. It's very unsatisfying, running back and forth to the storeroom to find shoes for people to try on. And there were ladies' shoes, and typically ladies trying a lot of shoes. It was all commission, and it was just very unsatisfying. I did that for a couple years, and then I decided this wasn't for me. I had to find another way. A lot of my friends back in the 80s, they were doing construction and had construction jobs with, contractors and builders, this and that. And somebody I knew got me an intro level job as a kind of like a carpenter's apprentice. And of course, you're not doing that much building when you're a carpenter's apprentice. You're just kind of, carrying lumber and maybe nailing some stuff in and cleaning stuff up. And then, you kind of start learning a trade, and then you're getting up on roofs and putting in shingles and stuff like that. And it was very physical. I grew up in New Jersey. It's hot in the summer. It's cold in the winter. You worked year round. If it rained, you didn't work. I did it for 2.5 years for a couple different people. The pay was not great. It was on the books. I started framing, you're up like way up high on ladders and walking across little beams and, kind of dangerous. And your boss doesn't care if you break your neck as long as it's after 5 p.m. And they would literally say that, don't break your neck till after 5. So I decided, I was 25 years old. I was so tired when I got home that I couldn't even go to my karate classes, which became my passion. I've been involved in martial arts for 36 years now. I got my black belt in 1988. I started in 1984, and I got my first degree black belt in 1989. I trained for about 11 years until I went away to law school out of state and left my dojo. But I actually still do classes from my dojo in New Jersey twice a week through Zoom. Thank God for Zoom, right? Where would we be today without Zoom in this pandemic? So I'm still involved. And I just want to say that for me personally, I would not be where I am today was it not for martial arts, because martial arts straightened me out, straightened out my life, got me together, got my head in the right place, got me mentally prepared for the challenges ahead to do what I wanted to do in life. So after I decided construction was not for me, I said, what am I going to do? I had to have a goal. I had to be realistic. I was always very good in school, and I applied myself when I was younger. In fact, up until 8th grade, I was pretty much a straight A student, except in math. So I said, well, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to become an attorney, but I had a backup plan if I didn't make that goal. So I chose a degree that I could get a decent job with and a decent career with just a bachelor's degree. So I decided I was going to be a criminal justice major. So I started out at the local community college, which was then Brookdale Community College. It was a 2-year school. The most you could get was an associate's degree. Now it's a 4-year school, but then it was a 2-year school. But I just took core courses while I waited to take my entrance exam for Rutgers University, which, as many of you know, is the State University of Rutgers, State University of New Jersey, and is the best state school in the state of New Jersey. And there are numerous state schools in New Jersey, but Rutgers is the top of the heap. I live in Georgia now for 23 years. It's like going to the University of Georgia. It's the top state university in that state. So I took core courses at Brookdale. I really liked the challenge of getting my mind stimulated again instead of relying on being basically indispensable labor. Got into Rutgers University. I was thrilled to get in because it's very, very hard to get into Rutgers, especially as a state resident, because everybody, his brother, his sister wants to go there because you get state rates. When I went to Rutgers University, starting in 1988, the tuition was $2,500 a year for 12 credit semester. That didn't include summer. I went to summer classes as well and got that paid for. My mom helped me out with that. It wasn't much, but she was kind enough to help me out with that and was glad I was on my way to bigger and better things. So I did well at Rutgers. I graduated with about a 3.0, which from Rutgers is pretty good. While I was going to Rutgers, I was an adult, of course. I was in my 20s. And I still had some bills to pay. And so I waited on tables. So waiting on tables and going to school full time and doing well is very good, I think, for anybody to do. And I also had to do that when I got into law school. Of course, at that time, I didn't know I would get into law school, let alone graduate law school, let alone pass the bar and be successful. So that's why my backup plan was a criminal justice major. If I didn't get through those other hurdles, I could always go into law enforcement. I was a black belt in karate. I was interested in law enforcement. I was interested in criminal justice. My plan was to be either a state trooper or a federal agent of some sort, perhaps a federal marshal. I wasn't sure, but I'm personally glad I did not have to go to plan B. Had I been a plan B person, I would have been fine with it because you can retire in 20 years, get a nice pension with benefits, and get another job in security or a consultant or whatever. But we always want to go for plan B in our first plan, and that was my first choice. So as I stated before, I got into law school down here in Atlanta. I live in a southern suburb of Atlanta, but I've been in Georgia for almost 24 years, 24 years in May. It's a wonderful place to live. The weather's great. Taxes are low. The cost of living is low compared to a lot of places. But this is where I ended up, like most people, not all, but most people who graduate law school will end up in the area where they went to law school. So for those of you who are thinking of going to law school and do go to law school, just be aware that most of your opportunities, more than likely, will be in the area of the country where you go to law school. So if you hate the cold, don't go to the University of Anchorage or Alaska State or, a place in Manitoba or anywhere where it's really cold if you can't stand the cold, because chances are you will end up living in that area where you went to law school. I can't tell you all the reasons why. I just know that's the statistics, and it bared true for me. I don't have a script here today. I just sort of have an outline because I want to cover certain sections of my story, and then I'll take questions, and Angie might have some questions. And so there we are. So I went to law school, John Marshall Law School in Atlanta, waited on tables, as I said before, while I was going to law school full time, which is not easy. In fact, most law schools tell you do not work during your first year of law school because your first year of law school is like boot camp. They try to weed you out, and they will weed out the weak. All law schools do it. Doesn't matter where you go. Certain percentage of people will not make it through their first year. That's how it's designed. They want to weed out the weak, or the people who just don't want to put in the effort to get through. Ability and execution are two different things, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit later when we're talking about jobs and stuff, because I am living proof of that it doesn't matter, honestly, in my opinion and in my life and other people that I know, where you go to law school. What matters is what you do when you get out. This is, of course, assuming you pass the bar. If you don't pass the bar, it doesn't matter if you graduated from Harvard Law first in your class. If you don't pass the bar in the state where you take it, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. You're a glorified Juris Doctor, and you will get treated appropriately in the marketplace. Okay? So remember, now I'm all for going to a great school. There's nothing wrong with that. It will, if you want to work for other people, will get your foot in the door, assuming you do well in that school. Now, being, the bottom of your class in a top 10 or top 20 school is probably not that great. You'd probably do better going into a lesser tough school and being in the top 10%. That's my personal opinion. And from people I've talked to and people I've seen, okay? John Marshall Law School is one of 5 law schools in Georgia. It is the least prestigious, but yet we have had probably 60 to 70 statewide judges from my alma mater of law school. And some of the best attorneys in the state are from that law school. And actually, and I'm not going to mention any names, but some of these attorneys who I know personally are considered some of the best attorneys in the entire country. And this is picked by their peers. It's not my opinion. This is peer picked type of thing. Martindale Hubbell, all these different lawyer organizations. And I'm not a name dropper, but if I drop their names and you look them up, you would see. I personally know someone who I went to law school with, considered one of the top 10 lawyers, I believe, in the country, as his father was as well. And he has recovered by himself, not just his firm, by himself, over $600 million. He does med mal practice and also serious personal injury of any sort. But he's one of the few people in Atlanta that does med mal and is known for med mal. And he is asked by and he's only on the bar in Georgia that I'm aware of, but he does pro hoc vici, which means you make a motion to that court to be allowed to practice in that other jurisdiction. You just have to associate with an attorney who's on the bar in that jurisdiction. And he get asked by tons of people over many years to be the lead counsel on very serious cases in other states. So, what matters, again, and I'm going to hit on this a lot, is what you do when you get out of law school. Can you execute for the partner you're working for? Can you bring in new business? Can you make the old business happy? It's all about execution. I know numerous people who have multiple, like 3 major degrees, okay, from major schools, all commensurate, all kind of help out each other. But yet when they got to the law world, they were not able to turn that into execution. And they never really made it in the law firm world to where they should be for their education and their experience in the law field. So,
Keith, can I ask you a question real quick?
Certainly.
So did you open up your own firm straight out of law school, or did you work for another firm?
I did. And I was about to get to that, but I wanted to stick on that for a second. That's my next section. So as soon as I graduated and took the bar and got my quote unquote bar card, as soon as I got that letter, I was so happy. I was hugging the postman. He didn't know what was going on. When I was still in law school, I had met some attorneys who used to frequent the restaurant where I worked at, which was kind of like a quasi fine dining kind of steakhouse kind of thing. They weren't true fine dining, but they came close enough. And it was a new restaurant in town. So we got a lot of people in there. And I met these 2 lawyers in there. And, I looked up to them. I thought they were like really great and stuff, but I didn't really know them. They were just like, patrons of mine. I got to know them, be friendly with them, and they knew I was in law school, and they offered me kind of like, a part-time clerkship while, I was still in law school. And so on my days off, maybe 1 or 2 days a week, if that, usually 1 day a week, I would go in and I would just do like whatever they wanted me to do. And, they would pay me. And it was a good way of getting experience. And then when I passed the bar, they, liked me and I liked them. And I rented space from them. And then they would throw you, crumbs, I call them, that they didn't want, claims or criminal cases that they didn't really want to deal with. Some of them were small potatoes, of course, because they didn't want them. And they'd give them to you. And, they'd make someone happy by taking the claim, but, you were handling it. So I was technically a solo practitioner. I was leasing space from them, but you would feed off these crumbs because nobody knew you. It's very hard to get work as a lawyer if people don't know you. So it was okay for 9 months, and I learned a lot. I did personal injury work and I did criminal defense, a lot of criminal defense, and started building up my own PI practice. And then after 9 months, I had enough of eating other people's crumbs. And I went out on my own, got my own space just a few blocks away, right? It was more than a few blocks away. It was in the same part of town, downtown Atlanta. I was right across from the city jail and the municipal court. what a great place to do criminal law. I had people walking in off the street. I had big signs in the windows. It was right across the street from the jail and the municipal court. I did, everything from parking tickets to felonies, whatever I could get. I was also doing personal injury work. After about 4 years of doing multiple disciplines, I just narrowed it down to personal injury because that's what I enjoyed the most. You don't have nearly as much stress when you're dealing with criminal defendants and criminal practice. And it's just what I wanted to do. So after 4 years of building up my base and actually doing very well compared to most of my peers in the same time period, I was just a personal injury lawyer.
So what would be your advice to people who are just coming out of law school and thinking about opening up their own practice? I mean, were you ever scared that maybe you didn't know enough, or how did you know?
Absolutely. Fear is not your friend. And it's natural to be fearful. It's 9 months in, Atlanta is a pretty big market. And, but I just, had faith in myself. And so my first month, I was a little bit, anxious, I guess you could say. On my first month out on my own, I think I made $2,000, but this is 20 years ago. And it was okay for me because I could see that it was going to start to snowball because business begets business. In other words, the number one way you're going to get clients in any field is word of mouth. People tell their friends, they tell their family. So when you're doing personal injury law and criminal defense, people tell their friends and family, hey, I got a great deal. I could have went to jail. I got probation. Hey, I got $10,000 for going to the chiropractor, whatever it is. If people trust you in your skills and your honesty and integrity, they will recommend you. And that's how I built up my practice.
As a young litigator, did you ever have any really embarrassing moments in court or learning moments that you felt like were a little harder than others?
I would say that so when I was in that rent situation from these lawyers, I remember the first time I ever went to court. I still remember it. It was a probation revocation hearing. In other words, someone on probation who was not locked up, but under the auspices of the correctional department, was out on the street. He messed up, got arrested for doing something. And when you're on probation, you don't have to commit a crime to go back to jail. You just have to do something that you're not supposed to on probation, which could be like hanging out with a former criminal, or, you could get a speeding ticket. You could jaywalk, really. You can do so many things. I mean, you're not a civilian. You're free, but you're not a civilian. Anyway, I don't remember what the guy did, but his probation officer wanted to revoke him. So he ends up in front of the court. And, I was very zealous in my reputation. It was my first revocation hearing. And I was, cross-examining my defendant client. And I used this word. I said, did so-and-so really piss you off? Showing why he got angry. And the judge went bonkers on me, I won't mention the county, but 20 years ago, it was a very conservative county. Not so much anymore. It's kind of changed, but the judge just went bonkers on me and said, Mr. Leshine, don't you use that language in my court. And I was just like, oh,
that had to be pretty scary.
Yeah, I was a little bit, okay, judge, I'm sorry. I was always very, you always want to be respectful of the judges, even if you disagree with them. I generally got along very well with judges. I did a lot of criminal work in my first 4 years, and then I just stopped it. But in that 4 years, I had been in front of judges from, municipal court to, superior court, which is felonies, and even federal court. So you always be deferential to the judge, show respect, and do not talk back. It is literally their house, okay? And once you get a reputation and they don't like you, that's probably not going to turn around. It's probably not going to turn around. I know I had a friend who was in the same office as me. And then, we were friends after that. And he had a problem with certain assistant district attorneys and certain judges. He's like, oh, I can't get a bond hearing and they won't give my guy a bond, or my guy got 5 years for something, I'm like, well, I always got along with them. I never had a problem with them. But I realized it was his attitude, because he was very cocky. And cocky is not going to do you any good, and certainly not going to do your client any good. And that's who you work for, is your client. So it's not
I
doing your
think as a
client
young
any
lawyer,
good.
the most important thing to learn is really to hang your ego at the door.
You should hang your ego at the door, even when you've been practicing 40 years. The most successful attorneys that I know are very down to earth and very approachable. And I just feel that's the way you should be, because cockiness, smirkiness, and attitude will not get you far with judges, juries, or your clients, or the opposing side, whether it's an insurance adjuster or a district attorney trying to put away your client.
So when you were starting out, how long did it take you to grow your practice to the point where you didn't have to go without, or that you could weather the storm if you didn't have income?
Well, I would say, after 6 years, I I was making about 400 grand a year, which of course was 16 years ago. No, it was 14 years ago. So 14 years ago, I was making about 400 grand a year, which I think was
That was a lot of money.
good.
That was a lot of money.
Money back then. Yeah. And I also want to say that in 14 years of practicing law, and 16 of that was exclusively personal injury, even though I always did personal injury. I've also been just doing personal injury for 16 years now. I just celebrated my 20th anniversary, November 7th. So I'm into my 21st year.
Congrats.
Thank you. In 14 years of practicing law, I got myself completely out of debt and never went back into debt. And at the time, I owned 3 beautiful homes, and which had aggregate value of they were all worth about $400,000. So my mortgage was probably less than that, because I always put down about 20% on each of them. But, I think for 14 years, it was my, even though I had, small little businesses when I was younger, selling shoes at a flea market kind of thing, for, my first professional job on my own, I think that's quite admirable. And while we're on the subject of debt, which all students, whether they're going to law school or grad school or not grad school, debt is always a big issue, because most people have debt. Okay. When I went to school, I was independent. My parents did not claim me on their taxes. Therefore, I was independent as far as the IRS goes. And I got merit scholarships, Pell Grant. So it's a Pell Grant. So I didn't have to pay back any monies that went towards my college. I basically went to college for free. But if my parents had claimed me and I was not, independent, I wouldn't have gotten those Pell Grants. So when you're looking to go to grad school or finish undergrad or whatever, or your second graduate school, I mean, people got all kinds of degrees nowadays, think about the cost, think about how you're going to pay for it. And if you can get any kind of grant or scholarships or anything, take advantage of it. My first year in law school, they had a thing at school where if you worked in the library, they would cut your tuition in half. And I was paying as I went along. So that was very important to me. Now, I only did it for one term. It just kind of took up more time than, I would have liked. And, being the library police didn't gain me any favors with people or anything like that. But I just stopped because I felt it was cutting into my studies. But my point is, if you can, there are all kinds of grants available, partial scholarships, work study programs. That's really what it was. It was like a work study program. Almost all schools have some sort of work study program where you do some sort of, work at the school, and they will, slice your tuition to a certain level. And of course, there's outright scholarships where if you're, of a certain caliber and you can keep up certain grades, they will cut your tuition. Some schools even pay for all of it, just depending on their program and where you fit in that program. So, but I would just want to say and I don't mind taking questions from you, Angie, because you're on point about your questions, but I just want to tell you 3 things that for me worked and will work for anybody, no matter what income level you are at, okay? And these are just 3 basic common sense principles, which a lot of people don't follow. And no matter how much money they make, they never really get ahead financially because they're always in debt, okay? And the first one is live below your means. So that's pretty obvious. So if you're making $100,000 a year and you're spending $120,000 a year, you're $20,000 a year in debt every year. It's like the government, but we can't print our own money, okay? So you can't just keep printing more money whenever you want at your own little treasury and say, okay, well, it's okay. I'm $20 trillion in debt, but it's okay. I'm just going to keep having a deficit every year because, as you know, in private life, it doesn't work that way because the creditors will come knocking. They will repo your house, they will repo your car and everything else you have on credit, which for most people, the big items is borrowed money. And you're also paying interest on that. For those of you who don't know, if you don't have a mortgage yet, you eventually more than likely will have a mortgage, no matter what it's on, a mortgage on a house, a condo, a townhome, whatever it is. A 30-year mortgage, which most people get, you will pay back. And now the rates have dropped substantially, and it's a good time to get mortgages, but your rates are going to go down. I mean, you're going to pay about almost triple what you initially borrowed. So if you can get rid of that debt, you're not paying all this interest that you could be putting to paying off other debts or saving or buying other things like investing in your own business. So live below your means. The second is pay off debt. Pay off that debt because it's like a ring around your neck. And then third, don't spend frivolously. Don't be buying stuff that you can't afford to buy. Meaning a lot of people, you can afford it. You'll get the credit for it. You'll get it. You'll own it. But does it really fit into your budget? Do you really need a $10,000 or $20,000 watch? Do you really need a $50,000, $60,000 or $70,000 car when you have the school loans to pay back, when you have a family to feed, when you could be putting that towards a house? If you do these things, those 3 things, you will get ahead. Even if you're making 50 grand a year, you're still going to get ahead by doing those things. So it's very important. And if you're running your own business, it's also very important to do that because, just because you make a lot on paper, it's all about what your net worth is. So, like I'm at the point where fortunately I don't need to work anymore. I choose to because I want to, but I don't need to. And I always said, even before I became a lawyer, I would love to be able to retire in my early 50s, maybe even 50. I had that opportunity, but it's good to have options. I could have want to keep working. What else am I going to do? I can't do Zoom presentations all day long. I can't play with my dog all day long. So my point is, success is subjective, but if success to you is to be financially secure, do those 3 things and you will get financially ahead in life. You may never be quote unquote rich. You may never be a millionaire or multimillionaire, but you will get ahead in life from where you are today. And that's important. Keep moving forward, not backwards. So I've been yapping for about 40 minutes. We're gonna
that
have
was
some
wonderful,
questions
Keith.
now.
Yeah, we've got a few questions in the chat box already, actually. Sure. You guys can feel free to ask these yourselves if you want to jump on camera, but if not, I can read them out of the chat.
Bring it on.
Chime in. Keith, I'm not a whole lot younger than you are, but I'm always telling my younger classmates, I'm a 2L, you get the big law firm job, then you go and buy the Mercedes, you buy the $400,000 house, then you find out you hate the work. You find out you hate the work and you can't leave because you have debt service that you have to keep up with.
And so it's very important. It's very important, sir, to do something you love. That's why I just narrowed it down to personal injury, because the other things that I didn't love. You can make money in any area of law, okay? But if you're going to do something for 20, 30, 40 years, do something that you really enjoy, that doesn't stress you out too much, okay? My clients, they never go to jail. If they do, it has nothing to do with my representation of them, okay? I'm not stressing about them going up to prison for 10 years, okay? I didn't have anything to do with it. And even when I was a criminal defense attorney, they did that before they even met me or before I even represented them. I don't have a magic wand. If you're on probation or parole and you get popped again, I would always tell them, listen, the question is not whether you're going back to jail, it's for how long, because you're going, my friend, you're going. Now, once in a while, I could get them back on probation or parole, depending on the county, depending on what they did. But you know what? Chances are they're not. So do something you love, because you're going to be doing it for a long time. And that's why I'm telling you about pay off your debt, save your money. So listen, if you want to try to get into another area of law, you want to take a hiatus from your high stress job you can't stand and you hate your boss, and most people hate their bosses. 90% of people hate their boss. That's a statistic. So, and law firms are very high stress. And that's why if you can work for yourself, I would recommend it. Not everybody can do it. Not everybody wants to do it. Only 10% of people in this country work for themselves in any business. And I'm sure that extends to lawyers as well. So if you can work for yourself, I would recommend it. I've always said, if you're going to bust your butt, bust it for yourself. Because even in a law firm, even in a top-notch law firm, okay, you will only get 10% of what you earn for that law firm. That's about the ratio. And that's the model. And that's why the partners are getting rich and not you. And that's why even though you might have a $400,000 house and a Mercedes, you will always be in debt and you will always just be able to pay your bills, because it's human nature. The more people make, the more they spend. And I'm just saying, no matter what you do, whether you go to law school, whether you don't go to law school, whether you're a cop, a baker, fireman, whatever you do, live below your means so you can save, because if you can't save, you're never going to get ahead.
Yeah.
So you don't want to be house rich and cash poor.
Sure.
You
Keith,
know what I mean?
When you were practicing, I'd say like in the middle of your career or at the early part of your career, about how many cases were you managing at a time?
Well, when I can just give you a guesstimation. So when I went out on my own after 4 years, just doing personal injury, I mean, when I say out on my own, when I said, I don't need anything else, I don't want anything else, I just want to, I would say I was doing a minimum of 100 cases a year, personal injury cases. And then maybe after 6, maybe 150. For about at least 10 years now, maybe a little more, I've been doing 350 to 400 claims a year, every year on the average. And that's about where I've leveled off. And that's fine for me, because when you're at the high end, you know, unless you live in a state like Florida or other state that has no state income tax, you know, I'm paying 43% of my income to income tax. So it's not only how much you make, it's how much you keep. So 43% is going to the government. So you have to figure, even if you're making this huge amount, that huge amount gets pared down to almost half of what actually left in your pocket. So you have to budget that. So, you know, I don't drive Ferraris. I don't drive Bugattis. Can I? Yes, but I don't, because I'd rather have that money in the bank, because I'd rather have it in the bank than in my driveway. You know, I have 2 beautiful homes. They're both paid for. I have one here and one in Naples, Florida, and they're both paid for. And they're not cheap homes, but I was able to do that by not buying the Ferraris, not buying the Mercedes, not buying stuff that I just could not justify at the time. I still can't justify spending $100,000 on a vehicle. I just won't do it. I'm not going to do it. Now, maybe one day I will, but I'm not doing it now. I just can't justify it. If I can't live in it, I'm not spending that much.
Got it. Did you have a plan B just in case your solo practice didn't pan out?
You know, after my first month, I wasn't worried about it. My plan B was, if I didn't get into law school or graduate or pass the bar. That would have been, I would have gone into some sort of criminal justice law enforcement realm. That was my plan B, and I didn't have to go to that. If, let's just say, I wasn't able to do it on my own, I guess I would have been working for someone else and been unhappy. But what I saw after 9 months is that you don't have to be a genius to make money as a lawyer. If you're competent and a good business person, you can do well. Now, if you're terrible and if you're not a good lawyer, you're probably not going to do well. But if you're a competent lawyer and a decent business person, you can do well. But if you're a really good lawyer and a really good business person, you can do extremely well. And so, you know, I consider myself a lawyer first and a business person second, because my number one goal is the client. Because if the client does well, then I will do well. So I don't look at a client with dollar signs. I look at a client. Can I help this person? Can I get this person a good result for whatever they're coming to you for?
On that point, how long did it take for you to evaluate whether or not taking a case was worth it, and whether or not you would work with that client?
Well, in my business, personal injury, because that's all I've done for 16 years, I can literally look at the police report and decide whether or not I'm going to take the claim. Because if it's a clear liability claim and they have some injuries and they're willing to go treat, then I'll take the claim. Because 90% of all personal injury claims are what they call soft tissue claims, meaning, you know, no fractures, no broken bones, no surgery, not serious. They might go to the ER and get checked out, and, you know, and then that's it. So they go to, you know, so soft tissue claims, 90% is soft tissue claims. So if you only want those big serious claims, that's only 10% of what's happening out there. And that's fine. There are a lot of people who do that. But in my business, the bigger claims come from smaller claims, meaning someone else, they got into a worse accident, you know, got hurt more, or a friend or family member did. And, you know, literally for the time that you personally invest in a small tissue claim per hour of your own time, generally you're going to do much better, because these big claims will take 3 to 5 years. And when you break down the amount of hours you put into it and what you made per hour in that claim, it's usually less than what you make on a soft tissue claim. I generally make about $1,000 an hour for my personal time invested in a soft tissue claim. Okay.
Got it.
So the top lawyers in Atlanta who charge by the hour, who are not contingency lawyers, because there's not too many things you can do on contingency, they're charging $600 an hour. Okay.
I see.
So
is your practice, your personal injury practice, it's all contingency fee?
That's the only way you can do it.
Yeah.
I don't think you're allowed to do it per hour. And if you are, nobody does it per hour. So, but I'm not going to say it's illegal, but why would you want to do it per hour when, you know, you can make more doing it on contingency? Because, you know, the thing about per hour, and even as an attorney, if I have to hire an attorney for something and they're charging per hour, you know, they don't have an incentive to get it over with quick. Their incentive is to drag it on. You know, I did family law for a short amount of time in my first 4 years, not too much. I did some. And, you know, I would just charge a flat fee because I wanted my client to know that, listen, my goal is to get this over as soon as possible. But almost all family law attorneys will charge an hour. They get a retainer and then an hourly. And, you know, when anyone's charging you per hour, what incentive do they have to get it over with quickly, even if they could? They don't. They have an incentive to keep dragging it on. And I've talked to numerous people that have gone through divorce. It's a 50-50 thing nowadays and has been for years. But the lawyers just drag it on for 3, 4, 5 years because they know they're going to get paid.
The only person who wins there is the lawyer, right?
Exactly. So, you know, the thing is, I don't have to, you know, I want to get it over as quickly for a good result. and I'll drag it out as long as my client wants. But if it's not going to benefit them, I mean, there comes a point where the insurance company is going to say, that's all we have. Either take it or let's rock and roll in court. Mm-hmm. And I would say 3% of my claims get litigated now. Mm. And I settle 97% of them, because when you're dealing with soft tissue claims, generally the client does not make out better in litigation.
Right.
They will maybe get awarded a little bit more at mediation, because they all end up in mediation, because there's mandatory mediation in like all of Georgia. And even before that, sometimes you want to just set the insurance company want to settle it, but they generally don't make out better. And then actually a lot of times they make out worse. So so let's say I have a claim for 9-10 months, and, the insurance company, well, that's it. That's all we're paying. And then, they watch too much Judge Judy. They think it's TV, and they go, well, I want to go to trial, and then at mediation, they get offered like $500 or $1,000 more. But once it's litigated, then the percentage to the lawyer goes up to 40%. And then there's more time involved, their own time that they've, takes maybe another 9 months, maybe another year. And how much more did they get? A lot of times they get less. So it's really, you got to think about what's best for your client realistically. And because I don't get paid by the hour, I'm going to tell them my honest opinion. And a lot of times people will say, well, I saw this on TV, or I got an Uncle Joe got $1 million. And everyone has an Uncle Joe that got $1 million, right? But it's just like, you got to be real. You got to look them in the eye and say, listen, you're probably not going to make out better, and you could get little or nothing.
Yeah.
If it's a reasonable offer, they're at this is reasonable. They're in the ballpark. Why take a chance on it? And if they want to go to trial, and I've advised them against it, I will make them sign something saying I advise them against it, but they still want to litigate it. So they can't come back and say, look what you did. No, it's what you did. It was your choice.
No, it's important to have that.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't want to get a bar complaint, and I don't want them bad-mouthing me because of their dumb mistake. Since I've been doing that, no one has gone to trial
against your advice.
Told them against my advice, because when they read it, they're like, oh yeah, maybe it's not a good idea. And so
that's awesome. How big is your law firm, Keith? I know you mentioned that you have a number of staff working with you. So how big is your firm?
I have 6 paralegals, including my office manager, and she's the head paralegal, so to speak. And I'm the only lawyer, and I like it that way. Now, could I hire other lawyers? Yeah, but to pay them what a lawyer makes in Atlanta, I could hire 2 paralegals, and I hire the paralegals because they can do a lot more clerical work than I can get done.
So what's your advice about hiring paralegals? What do you look for in a good paralegal?
What I look for personally is somebody who can take corrections in a positive way and not get all defensive and fishimled and, be like, oh, it's because every law firm operates differently. Every law firm has a different way of doing things, every job. So, and I generally look for people that don't have experience in a law firm, because they think that, oh, well, I was a King and Spalding for 20 years, which is one of the largest law firm in Atlanta. And they think they know it all, and they don't want to listen to what you have to say about how to do something. So I'd rather have someone that's good on a computer, has a good work ethic, and a good attitude. And those are the people that have been with me for 10 years or more, and the people who stay.
So where do you usually find these people? Do you post job postings, or?
Yeah, I'll put an ad in, once in a while. If we need somebody, we'll put an ad in Indeed or something like that. And we give them a work interview where they actually get paid for working, because resumes really, they only mean so much. It's all about execution. Like I said, it's what you do when you get out there, and whether you're a lawyer, a paralegal, whatever you are, it's all about execution. So, and a team player, got to be a team player. If you're not a team player, you're not going to get far in life in general.
And what have you learned about being a manager? I think it's a hard skill, right? To be a manager, from going from the one doing the work to being the one.
The good thing about my background is I did have management experience from, when I was 16 years old, I was running flea market stands for other people. Then when I was in my 20s, I was doing corporate management. I saw my mother run her own dance school for many, many years. So I knew that once I got my bar license, I could run my own business. I was very, sure of that I could do it. Let's just say I was very confident that I could do it, because management has certain basic principles no matter what you're managing, and business has the same. So if you follow the same basic principles and apply it to the craft you're at, then you'll be successful. Because I know a lot of really, really good lawyers, and they can't run their own firm because they just too many other things to do. And then I know people, good business people, they're not the greatest lawyers, but they do okay. So again, it's a combination of skills. You have to be good at what you do and be able to run a business.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. Does anybody else have any questions for Keith before we go today? I really appreciate you for being here and sharing all these words of wisdom with our students. I hope that you guys all learned something, and that we'll be back on Thursday with another meetup. So I'd love to see you again on Thursday. And we also have our Friday happy hour this week. So feel free to stop by. Keith, feel free to jump by. Our happy hour, we do a virtual happy hour on Zoom, and you get to meet law students and lawyers and pre-law students and everybody. So if you have some time, stop on by.
That sounds like fun. I'll bring my Crown Royal.
Awesome. Sounds good. So, and we also have a bonus event on Friday. I totally forgot. For non-traditional law students who are interested in maybe doing a hybrid JD program, and you want to learn more about what it's like to do one of these hybrid programs where you can work and go to law school at the same time, come and check out our Friday program with Barbary and iLaw. So if you have any questions about those things, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll see you guys again on Thursday. Bye, everybody.